Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how I do my favourite peachy glowy makeup look, which is what I wear pretty much, not every day, but if I'm going to like a daytime event or I want to look glam during the day, then this is what I will do. I'm going to start off by using my illuminator. This is in the shade Jewel, and it's a really nice creamy kind of formula that I like to use before my foundation. I'm just going to pop this all over the face, and this is going to act as a sort of primer. I'm not going to be using any sort of primer anywhere else. I'm just going to put on the illuminator to start off with, and this is also going to help hydrate the skin before the foundation. I'm just using my buffer brush just to buff this in the skin and just make sure it's really nicely pressed in. I do like to put this all over. Sometimes I like to just kind of keep it on my cheekbones and my nose area, but for this look I do want it to be super glowy, so I am just going to put it all over the face. This shade is quite pearlescent, so it's a bit lighter than the other shade Crown, which is more of a goldy bronze shade, which I like to use if I'm going out at night and I want to look a little bit more tanned. And I also use the darker shade all over my body. Just gives a really nice glow. So as you can see, that is super glowy. And then I'm going to go in with my foundation, which is the NARS Sheer Glow foundation in the shade Barcelona. And I love using this one in the day because it's still quite sheer, but it gives kind of like a medium to full coverage. I always love full coverage, even during the day. Even when my skin's being good, I just like that full coverage look. I'm going to pop this on with a beauty blender. And I'm just going to bounce that into my skin, and this just creates more of a fuller coverage. Rather than swiping it around with a brush, I prefer to just bounce it in. I always make sure the beauty blender's damp as well, so I wet it and then I'll just wring it out with a towel just so it's got a little bit of moisture. It's not soaking wet, but it's not dry either, because I find if it's dry it just soaks up all the foundation or anything that you're going to use with it. I'm going to take it all over the eyelid. And make sure to go down the neck as well, because you want it to blend in with your chest. So that's why I am using a foundation which is probably 3 to 4 shades darker than my natural skin tone, but because I am wearing fake tan, I just want it all to like blend into one. So that's why I've gone with the darker foundation. So once the foundation's on, I just do one layer. If I do feel like I need a little bit more coverage in one area, then I will go back in with a second layer, say like on my cheeks if I had a bit of redness, but I think I'm all right for now. I'm going to use some concealer just underneath my eyes. This is the Laura Mercier Flawless Fusion Concealer in the shade 3W. I love this concealer as well because it feels really lightweight, but again it is full coverage and long lasting, so it's not going to crease throughout the day or anything like that. And I like to kind of use quite a lot of this as well, just underneath my eye area, down the centre of my nose, in between my brows and on my chin, and also on my cupid's bow, just in the centre of the face. I never worry about applying too much because I am going to go in with a sponge. It always takes the excess product off, so you're never going to be left with like a cakey base if you're using a sponge. And I just like to pat this in with the corner of the beauty blender, just so I can get right in underneath my eyes. And I'm going to take that over my eyelids as well. I find it really important to make sure I get the concealer into the inner corner of my eye, which is where I get like darkness and purple undertones. This concealer just cancels it all out and just gives you a really nice even base, ready for eyeshadow application. So once the concealer's all on, I'm going to set it with a setting powder. So at the minute I'm loving the Hourglass Mineral Veil, I think it's called, translucent powder, and I'm just going to pop this on with my beauty blender again. Just going to take some on the corner of my blender, take the excess in my hand because I don't want it to be too cakey, and then I'm just going to set that concealer with the powder in the same motion that I did when I was blending it out. So if you can see the difference, this is nice and matte and set, and this is still a little bit dewy. So I'm just going to go in and set the other side. And I make sure to put a lot of powder around my nose as well, because that's where I do tend to get a little bit oily throughout the day. And then I'm going to put it on my chin. Center of the forehead. So I'm just going to make sure the center of my face is all matte. So I'm going to go on to brows now. So I'm going to use the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz in the shade Taupe. And I'm just going to brush my brow hairs upwards, just to start off, just so I can see exactly where I want the pencil. And then I'm just going to take the pencil right under my brow hairs in really small motions. I don't want to go right in and do like one long line, because it's just going to look too harsh. So I like to use really light pressure with it as well. I'm mainly going to focus underneath my brow because I want it to look a little bit fluffy and natural on the top. So I don't want it to be too blocky above my brow. And then I'm just going to go in and fill the rest of my brow in with the same hair-like kind of motions, and always brushing through at the same time, just to soften the product a little bit. When it comes to the front of my brow, I'm actually going to use upward strokes, and this is just going to create the look of having like a fluffy front of the brow. And then I'm just going to brush through. So it's not too harsh, but it's still got a little bit of fullness. I just like to go in the sparse areas, especially around my arch. I just want it to look a little bit more defined. And then I'm going to do the same with the other brow. And start off by brushing up the hair strokes, and then just underlining. I like to go underneath the brow hairs, that way it looks a lot cleaner underneath. So taking it right underneath where the hairs are. I'm not going directly into the brow as such, but under, and then fill in where you need to. And then the front of the brow, I'm going to do the same thing, just use upward motions. So I'm just going to make sure to brush through the front of the brow, which just makes it look a lot softer. And then I'm going to go in and set it with a clear brow gel. This one's from NYX. I'm actually going to brush the hair strokes upwards so they set in that direction. This gives the eyebrow a lot more texture. Just like that. And then I'm going to go in and clean up underneath the brow. So I'm going to put some concealer underneath the brow and over my eyelid. I'm going to use the same Laura Mercier one. And then I'm going to take my flat shader brush and I'm going to pat the concealer right the way over my eyelid, which is going to act as a primer, which when we go in with the eyeshadow, it's going to make the eyeshadow blend a lot more easier. I like to use quite a lot of concealer for this because I do want a really flawless base ready for my eyeshadow. And then just pat it over the lid. This feels nice and blended. And I'm just going to blend it out with one of my crease brushes just to soften it up a little bit. And do the same on the other side. Making sure I use a lot of product as well. And this brush is perfect for carving out the eyebrow because it's flat and then it's got a nice flat edge as well, which is a little bit kind of tapered. It's really easy to get right underneath the brow and create a nice sharp line. And it's not too small either, so it's not going to take forever. You want quite a big surface area because you are patting it all over the lid. Otherwise it just takes ages. I'm going to go in with a crease brush again, just to blend out those edges. And it just helps the concealer set a little bit more. once it's blended out. So I'm going to set my eyelids a tiny bit with a little bit of translucent powder. I'm just going to use the Luxe Cheek Finish brush actually. Just a nice big brush that I use for powder. Just going to dust a little bit over the lid. That just sets the concealer so it's not going to crease. It's still a little bit tacky, which helps the eyeshadow really like cling to the lid, and it's going to look a lot more pigmented. Because this look is a day look, I'm not too worried about having a really strong eye look. I want to keep it quite soft, so I'm not too fussed about showing all the colours and everything. When I'm doing an evening look, I do tend to leave the concealer wet and tacky. That's just going to help the eyeshadows cling to that concealer, and it will just look a lot more pigmented and bright. So I'm going to be using the Burgundy eyeshadow palette, and I'm going to be using the peachy shades within the palette. So along this side, the oranges, the peaches, and a little bit of the gold as well at the bottom. And I'm going to start off with this top shade, which is a perfect transition shade. So I always use a transition shade, whether I'm doing a daytime look, a nighttime look, a cut crease, any sort of eye look. I always start off with the transition, and it's just a really nice soft, peachy, warm undertone, neutral shade. And I just find it helps all the other shades blend into one. So even if I'm just doing nothing on the eye and I've got lashes on, I'll just run a transition shade through the crease, and it just gives a little bit of something, just a little bit of definition. So I'm just going to pop this right through the crease. This is definitely one of my favourite shades in the palette, just because you can use it for any look. And I always make sure to turn my head just so I can see exactly what the eyeshadow is doing on the outer part. Sometimes if I'm just looking straight ahead, I can't exactly see what's going on in this part here, and I just want it to almost blend into nothing. So if you can see, that just gives a nice shadow without looking too harsh. I'm going to do the same on the other eye. Just using back and forth motions and also circular motions just to blend that in seamlessly. And then I'm going to blend it right up into the brow as well, but still leaving a little bit of the light concealer, which acts as like a natural highlight. And then I'm going to run it along underneath my lower lash line as well. I find this helps to set the concealer as well. It's not going to crease underneath the lower lash line if you use a little bit of a lighter shade underneath. And you can bring it down quite low as well. So after that shade, I'm going to go in with the peachy shade, this shade here, which is another one of my favourites because it just, especially because I've got blue eyes, I feel like it just really makes them pop. I love wearing orangey shades on my eyes. And I'm just going to run that directly into the crease. I'm going to use a cleaner one just to help blend that into the transition. So I like to start by placing it directly into the crease, going back and forth, not really moving my brush up and down, just more sideways. And then with a cleaner brush, that's when I start blending it upwards. I don't want to take too much of the shade. I don't want to take it too high up. And I'm going to take a little bit underneath my eyes as well. And then just blend with the cleaner brush. So I'm going to use a little bit of shimmer right on the centre of my eyelid just to give it a little bit of a sparkle. So I'm going to use the gold shade right at the bottom. This is like a yellowy kind of peachy gold. And again, I find it complements the peach on my lid perfectly. They go together really nicely. And then I'm going to focus this mainly in the centre of my eye and just on the eyelid. I want it to blend really nicely into the peach shadow. I'm just going to go back to my crease brush and just give that a little blend together. I'm going to pop it on the other eye. And when I'm placing the shadow on the lid, what I like to do is just press and drag down. So I press and drag, and that just makes the shadow come out a lot better. If I'm just swiping over a shimmer shade, I feel like it doesn't really cling to the eyelid, and it's not gonna be as pigmented, it's not gonna shine as much. If I press and drag it down, I feel like it really just sticks to that eyelid. And then in the inner corner of the eye, I'm gonna put a little bit of a highlighter shade. I'm just gonna take this lighter pink shimmery shadow right into my inner corner, my tear duct. And I'm gonna run that tiny bit underneath my brow bone as well. Like that. So I'm going to miss out eyeliner. I'm just going to line the lashes with a little bit of brown shadow. This just creates definition along the lash line, but it's not going to be too heavy and it's not going to look like anything extreme. So I'm just going to take the wing liner brush and using the chocolate brown right at the top, I'm going to grab a little bit on my brush and then literally just press it along my lash line. Because I am going to be putting lashes, false lashes on afterwards, I want something for them to sit on. If I didn't do this step, then sometimes you can see where the lashes have been stuck on. So this is a good tip to help blend the lashes into your natural lash line. Because it is a shadow I'm working with and not a eyeliner, I'm just going to press rather than drag. And that's literally all I'm going to do. I'm going to keep it quite light. Once I've lined the lash line with the eyeshadow, I'm just going to go in with some mascara on my natural lashes. I'm just going to use the Barry M Feature Length Mascara. I'm just going to pop this on my top lashes. Putting mascara on before lashes, I find help blend your natural lashes with the false lashes. If you do it afterwards, I don't really tend to use mascara on my actual false lashes because they are mink. I don't want them to be ruined and they can get a little bit kind of clumpy. So I'm going to use the Alexa lash. So these are really nice and fluffy. They're probably one of my favourite lashes because they're super fluffy and they've got little gaps in between, so they're still quite natural. They're not really like full and black, they're still going to show your eyeshadow through. So what I like to do is just bend the plastic backwards and then I'm just going to pull the lash from the centre really carefully off the plastic. And then I like to take the lash and measure it up with my eye shape. So I like to do this before putting the glue on. I'm just going to measure up roughly. So I know that I can take probably 2 kind of sections off the outer part of the lash. I always cut from the outside in because if you're cutting from the inside out, then the lash is going to start by being really long. So once the lash is cut, I'm just going to apply a thin layer of glue. And I like to use Duo brush on glue in black. And then I allow the lash to dry for at least a minute or 2 minutes. The longer you leave it, the stickier and tackier the glue will get, so it will make it a lot easier to apply the lash straight on without it like sliding about. So I usually wait for my lashes to dry down a little bit and then just move on to the rest of my face and then go back to my eyelashes. I'm just going to take my Luxe Cheek Finish brush and I'm going to use this to contour the cheekbones. I'm going to use the Topshop bronzer in the shade Mohawk. I'm just going to take this right underneath my cheekbone and just use it in light circular motions. This just creates a natural shadow underneath the cheekbone. It's just going to define and contour it. I love this brush because it's quite small. It really gets into that area. If I was to use a bigger brush, it would just kind of be a lot more kind of muddy. I want this to be a little bit more controlled. I'm not going to take it too close to the mouth either. I'm just going to take it about 2/3 of the way down my cheek. From the center, I still want it to be quite light in this area. I don't want it to be dark all the way across. And then I'm going to take it underneath my jawline as well. This just helps to slim out the face a little bit. And then underneath my chin. Just like that. I'm going to take a little bit around my hairline. When I contour, I like to take it right the way around the whole face. If I'm just using in the cheeks, I find it looks a bit more obvious. If I use it right around the face, it kind of ties in together and blends in together as well. So I'm going to go back to my lashes and I'm just going to stick these on before they completely dry. To help them stick down, I just kind of press. That just helps the glue stick to your eyelid and hopefully it won't be lifting up. You can use tweezers as well, which a lot of people find easier to use tweezers. I personally find using my fingers easier, I don't know why, but tweezers definitely help. I'm just going to stick the second lash down and I'm going to measure up with the centre of my eye to start off with. And then once it's placed, I like to stick both the corners down. And you can go ahead and use tweezers as well. I find sometimes that helps just get the lash in the right place. I do like to tend to use my fingers quite a lot. So once the lashes are both on, I'm going to go ahead and contour my nose. I'm just going to use the same brush that I used to contour my face, which is the Luxe Cheek Finish brush. And I actually just pinch it so it's kind of tapered and thin. Take a little bit of the bronzer and then I just run it right down the sides of my nose. And also underneath my nose. Just lightly. I don't want a heavy contour because it is a day look, but I do still like a little bit of contour, especially if I'm doing the perimeter of my face and I just leave my nose bare. I find it seems to highlight my nose, so I like to contour it a little bit just so it kind of matches the rest of my face. And then I'm going to go in with some highlighter. So I'm just going to run it down the centre of my nose and on the tip. And I'm going to use a clean cheek finish brush and Laura Geller highlighter in Gilded Honey, which is one of my favourites. It's a nice champagne-y gold colour. I'm just going to pop this on the tops of my cheekbones, a little bit above my brow, on my cupid's bow, and a tiny bit on my chin, because I do want this look to be really glowy. Then for blusher, I'm going to be using MAC Warm Soul Blusher, which is a peachy pinky shade, which again just ties in with the eyes and the whole look. So I like to pop that on the apples of my cheeks and then just blend it kind of into the highlighter, just so they like melt together. So I've just popped a nude eyeliner into my waterline, which is just to help brighten up my eye and make it appear larger. I find doing this with this eye look just makes it look a lot brighter as well, and I love it. So I'm going to move on to lips now. I'm going to mix two of my liquid lips. I'm going to mix Baby Doll and Sweetie Pie. Baby Doll is more of a peachy pinky shade and Sweetie Pie is like a candy floss pink. So I'm going to start off with the peachy shade, and I like to apply this right before lip liner. I go in with lip liner afterwards. I'm going to apply one layer of this shade to start off with, and I always like to use my finger to press it in. Look, it gives it more of a velvety, like softer look. And I'm going to take a little bit of stripped down lip liner by MAC, just to overdraw my lips a tiny bit. take Sweetie Pie right in the centre. And again, just using my middle finger just to press that in and blend them together. So you could leave it matte, but I do like to go in with a gloss just to finish it off. So I'm going to use the NYX Fortune Cookie Butter Gloss. And that combination is definitely one of my favourites. I think it's really nice for the summertime and just for a really nice summery look. I'm going to finish off the look by using a setting spray. So this is the Gerard Cosmetics Slay All Day setting spray, and it smells like watermelon. It's amazing. I'm just going to apply this all over the face, which will just hydrate the skin, make it look a little bit more glowy, and also set the foundation and make it last all day.